and they got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. So they said, to tell you what, why don't we kill him off?
Remember when TV stars actually stuck around for entire series runs? Well, the 70s and 80s changed all that. These decades gave us some of television's most iconic shows and most dramatic exits. Today, we're counting down 30 TV stars who walked away from, got fired from, or dramatically left hit shows during television's golden age of primetime drama and comedy. Some became legends, others disappeared faster than their syndication deals, and a few made choices that still baffle Hollywood insiders today. Before we dive into the decade-defining drama, hit like and subscribe if you love retro TV as much as we do. Now, let's get into this massive countdown.
Starting our countdown is Mark Harmon.
Plastic surgeons are generally involved in very specific cases. I mean,
the future NCIS legend who walked away from one of the 80s most critically acclaimed medical dramas. St. Elsewhere revolutionized hospital shows with gritty realism. Harmon played Dr. Robert Caldwell, bringing trademark intensity to chaotic St. Eligius hospital halls. His rugged looks and compelling performances made him a standout in an ensemble cast including Denzel Washington. But Harmon had bigger ambitions than ensemble work. After establishing himself as a serious dramatic actor, he left to pursue leading man roles. The show continued its acclaimed run without him. But Harmon's departure signaled his transformation from ensemble player to leading man, ultimately landing him the role that would define his career decades later on NCIS. At number 29, we have Melissa Sue Anderson, who played middle child Mary Ingalls.
Artificial flowers, and I tripped over one and went flat and like right over on my neck.
Before leaving the prairie for personal reasons. Little House became a family television institution. Anderson's Mary was the responsible, studious eldest daughter who went blind in a devastating storyline, showcasing the show's willingness to tackle serious issues. But Anderson grew uncomfortable with the demanding schedule and her character's diminished screen time as Laura became the clear focus. She also cited tensions with Michael Landon's controlling directorial style. Anderson left during season 8 with Mary written off as moving away. She struggled to find roles matching Little House's success, proving that sometimes leaving a hit show means leaving stardom behind. At number 28 is Michael Landon himself.
I kind of thought my family would like to watch that. I got a lot of kids, and it's kind of fun to think you're going to do a show that you would be.
Though his exit was about creative control rather than abandonment. As both star and executive producer, Landon essentially was Little House on the Prairie. He played Charles Ingalls, the wise patriarch whose gentle guidance anchored the series. When NBC wanted to continue beyond its natural conclusion, Landon initially resisted, feeling the story had run its course. When the final experiment failed to capture audiences, Landon made the bold decision to literally blow up the town in the series finale, ensuring no one could continue without it. It was television's most dramatic ending. Landon immediately moved to Highway to Heaven, proving that walking away from your biggest hit can ensure your creative legacy remains intact. Number 27 takes us to David Caruso.
For an actor, it's what you get to go through on camera, what the character gets to go through, and boy, this...
Whose 1994 exit from NYPD Blue became legendary for all the wrong reasons. Though technically early 90s, Caruso's departure was rooted in 80s-style ego. NYPD Blue pushed network boundaries with gritty police procedural style. Caruso played Detective John Kelly with intensity that made him an instant star. But success went to his head quickly. After just one season and a Golden Globe win, Caruso demanded movie star money, reportedly asking for $100,000 per episode. When producers balked, he walked away, convinced he was destined for film stardom. His subsequent movies bombed spectacularly. NYPD Blue thrived without him for 11 more seasons, with Jimmy Smits stepping in seamlessly. Caruso's exit remains a cautionary tale about leaving too soon. At number 26, we have Shelley Long, whose departure from Cheers represents one of television's biggest what-if moments.
I knew that I had a 5-year contract, and I was ready to devote more time to my family.
Cheers became one of the most beloved sitcoms in television history. Long played Diane Chambers, the pretentious intellectual waitress whose love-hate relationship with Sam Malone drove the show's early success. Her neurotic perfectionism and verbal sparring with Ted Danson created television gold, turning Will They or Won't They into an art form. But after 5 seasons at the show's peak, Long chose to walk away in 1987. She wanted to focus on her film career and spend time with her newborn daughter. Long's subsequent film career never reached predicted heights. Cheers continued successfully for 6 more seasons, but many fans believe the show's magic peaked with Long's brilliance. Number 25 brings us Linda Evans, who left Dynasty as the primetime soap reached its most outrageous peaks.
In the this family and all of a sudden everything falls into place and she's got it all down. The thing I like about a continuing show is
Dynasty defined 80s excess with shoulder pads, catfights, and melodramatic storylines. Evans played Crystal Carrington, the good-hearted former secretary who married oil tycoon Blake Carrington. Her character served as the moral center in a world of scheming relatives and corporate backstabbing. Evans' wholesome beauty contrasted perfectly with Joan Collins' villainous Alexis, creating one of television's greatest rivalries. But by the late 80s, Evans was exhausted by the demanding schedule and increasingly ridiculous plot lines. She also wanted to explore other opportunities before being forever typecast. Evans left during season 8 with Crystal written into a mysterious coma. Dynasty limped through one final season without its moral anchor. Joan Collins at number 24, whose Dynasty departure was equally dramatic.
I changed the script a lot. I had to give her more humor because it was too grand guignol, a lot of the things that she would say.
As Alexis Carrington Colby, Collins single-handedly saved Dynasty from cancellation when she joined in season 2. Her deliciously evil performance turned a struggling primetime soap into a cultural phenomenon. Alexis was vindictive, manipulative, and absolutely magnetic, delivering cutting one-liners while wearing increasingly elaborate costumes. Collins understood that Alexis wasn't just a character but a fantasy of power and revenge that audiences craved. But as the show's writing became more cartoonish and ratings declined, Collins grew frustrated with the direction. When contract negotiations broke down before the final season, Collins departed, leaving Dynasty without its most compelling character. The show was quickly canceled, proving that some performers are simply irreplaceable. At number 23 is Charlene Tilton, whose departure from Dallas represented the end of an era for television's most famous primetime soap.
Oh, I would have never chosen to leave the show, never. I guess the public was not quite happy the way Charlene Tilton was treated.
Dallas pioneered the nighttime soap opera format. Tilton played Lucy Ewing, the wild child whose rebellious antics provided both comic relief and dramatic tension. Her character's tumultuous relationships and schemes kept audiences guessing, while Tilton's natural charisma made Lucy surprisingly sympathetic despite her manipulative tendencies. But by the mid-80s, Tilton felt her character was being marginalized as new storylines focused on other family members. She also wanted to pursue other acting opportunities and escape the typecasting that came with playing television's most famous bad girl. Tilton left during season 8, with Lucy written off as moving to Europe. Dallas continued for several more seasons, but original cast departures signaled the show's decline. Number 22 might surprise you, Larry Hagman, who made J.R.
Well, because I just really got tired of everybody being so nice, like the Waltons, everybody's so nice.
Ewing a household name. While Hagman stayed with Dallas for most of its run, his temporary departure during contract negotiations created one of television's most famous holdouts. J.R. Ewing wasn't just a character, he was a cultural phenomenon whose scheming oil baron antics made Dallas appointment television. Hagman's portrayal was perfectly calibrated between charm and menace, making viewers love to hate television's greatest villain. But Hagman knew his worth and wasn't afraid to negotiate hard. During several contract disputes, he held out for better terms, understanding that Dallas simply couldn't exist without J.R. Peeker. For this show, his most famous holdout came before the Who Shot J.R. resolution, when he demanded salary increases that made him one of television's highest-paid actors. The network ultimately gave in because J.R. Ewing was Dallas. At number 21, we have Victoria Principal.
First 5 years of Dallas were extraordinary. It was great.
Whose departure from Dallas marked the end of one of primetime television's most tumultuous love stories. Principal played Pamela Barnes Ewing, the wife caught between her love for Bobby Ewing and her loyalty to her family's bitter feud with the Ewings. Her character provided the emotional heart of Dallas, balancing the show's scheming politics with genuine romantic drama. Principal's chemistry with Patrick Duffy created some of television's most memorable romantic moments. But as Dallas entered the 80s, Principal grew frustrated with her character's direction and the show's increasingly soap opera-style plotting. She also had ambitions beyond acting, wanting to develop her skincare business and production company. Principal's departure was handled through a dramatic car accident. Dallas continued without one of its central characters, but the Bobby-Pamela love story's absence was always felt. Number 20 brings us Patrick Duffy.
It was a couple of good friends sitting down having a drink and being silly and saying, why don't you come back? And I said no. And
whose Dallas departure created one of television's most infamous storylines. Duffy played Bobby Ewing, the good son whose moral compass often clashed with his brother J.R.'s scheming nature. Bobby was the heart of Dallas, providing an ethical center in a world of oil politics and family betrayals. Duffy's earnest performance made Bobby genuinely likable, no small feat in a cast full of anti-heroes and villains. But by 1985, Duffy was frustrated with his character's direction and wanted to explore other opportunities. His departure was handled through Bobby's shocking death, killed by his unstable sister-in-law in a dramatic season finale. However, Dallas struggled without its moral anchor and ratings began to decline. Desperate to revive the show, producers convinced Duffy to return with television's most ridiculous explanation. The entire previous season had been Pamela's dream. At number 19, we honor Dan Blocker.
I have been superstitious about the first year, and the second, the third. The 13th year has no particular significance other than it's just another year.
Whose departure from Bonanza was tragically beyond anyone's control. Blocker played Hoss Cartwright, the gentle giant whose kind heart and simple wisdom made him the most beloved character on the long-running Western. Bonanza ran from 1959 to 1973, making it one of television's longest-running Westerns. Hoss wasn't the smartest or toughest Cartwright, but his genuine goodness and loyalty made him the emotional core of the family. Blocker's performance perfectly balanced comedy and drama, making Hoss both the show's comic relief and its moral compass. Tragically, Blocker died suddenly in 1972 from complications following surgery, leaving Bonanza without its heart. The producers chose to continue for one final season, but without Hoss's warmth and humor, Bonanza felt incomplete. The show ended after 14 seasons, partly because Blocker's death had fundamentally changed its family dynamic. Number 18 takes us to another Bonanza departure with Pernell Roberts.
I mean, while he was looking in the box, somebody rode up and scared him and the other...
whose exit was far more controversial than his co-star's tragic passing. Roberts played Adam Cartwright, the intellectual eldest son whose Eastern education often put him at odds with frontier life. Adam was the thinking man's cowboy, bringing sophistication and moral complexity to the Ponderosa. Roberts' classically trained acting background elevated every scene, making Adam the most psychologically complex Cartwright. But Roberts grew increasingly frustrated with the show's formulaic Western plots and his character's limited development. He wanted to tackle more serious dramatic roles and felt constrained by the weekly Western format. After 6 seasons, Roberts shocked producers and fans by walking away from one of television's biggest hits. His departure was handled by having Adam leave to pursue business opportunities in the East. Bonanza continued successfully for 7 more seasons. At number 17, we have Bea Arthur.
Well, I mean, I had a lot of fun because, you know, it was John Rich directed and...
whose departure from Maude marked the end of one of television's most groundbreaking sitcoms. Maude ran from 1972 to 1978, spinning off from All in the Family to tackle controversial social issues with unprecedented boldness. Arthur played Maude Findlay, the outspoken liberal whose feminist views and sharp tongue made her television's most formidable matriarch. Maude wasn't just funny, she was revolutionary, addressing topics like abortion, alcoholism, and domestic violence that other sitcoms wouldn't touch. Arthur's towering presence and impeccable comedic timing made every episode a masterclass in social commentary disguised as entertainment. But after 6 groundbreaking seasons, Arthur was ready to move on. She felt the show had said what it needed to say about women's liberation and social justice. Arthur's departure effectively ended Maude, as the character was so central to the show's identity. Number 16 brings us Valerie Harper, whose career included 2 significant departures that shaped television history.
My name is Rhoda Morgenstern. I was born in the Bronx, New York.
Harper first left The Mary Tyler Moore Show to star in her own spin-off, Rhoda, which ran from 1974 to 1978. Playing Rhoda Morgenstern, Harper created one of television's most lovable characters, a wisecracking, self-deprecating New Yorker whose weight struggles and romantic mishaps made her incredibly relatable. But Harper's most dramatic departure came from her own show, Valerie, which premiered in 1986. When contract negotiations broke down over salary and creative control, Harper was fired from her own series in an unprecedented move. The producers killed off Valerie in a car accident and brought in Sandy Duncan, renaming the show The Hogan Family. Harper sued and eventually won a substantial settlement, but the damage to her career was significant. The incident highlighted the brutal economics of television production. At number 15, we have Demond Wilson.
I haven't really had a chance to think about it. I've just been working a lot.
Whose departure from Sanford & Son created one of television's most bitter behind-the-scenes feuds. Wilson played Lamont Sanford, the long-suffering son whose dreams of escape were constantly thwarted by his cantankerous father's schemes. Sanford & Son became one of television's most successful sitcoms through its perfect blend of physical comedy and social commentary. Wilson's straight man performance was crucial to the show's success, providing the emotional grounding that made Red Fox's outrageous behavior believable. But as the show's success grew, so did tensions between Wilson and Fox over billing, salary, and creative control. Wilson felt undervalued despite being essential to every episode. When contract negotiations for the final season broke down, Wilson walked away, refusing to continue feeling like a second-class citizen. Sanford and Son attempted to continue with Fox alone, but without the central father-son dynamic, the show was quickly canceled. Following Wilson is Red Fox at number 14.
All in all, it was great fun, great experience, and I'd like to do it again.
Whose own departure from Sanford and Son was equally dramatic, but for different reasons. Fox was already a comedy legend when Sanford and Son premiered, bringing decades of nightclub experience to television's first successful African-American sitcom. His portrayal of Fred Sanford was masterful physical comedy, combining vaudeville timing with genuine emotional depth. Fox's fake heart attacks became cultural touchstones, while his relationship with Lamont provided the show's emotional core. But Fox's relationship with NBC grew increasingly strained over money and creative control. He felt the network was profiting enormously from his work while paying him less than comparable white stars earned. When negotiations broke down before the final season, Fox staged his own walkout, effectively ending the original series. The show attempted to continue as Sanford Arms without both stars, but failed miserably and was canceled after one season. At number 13, we have Esther Roll,
I hope your nose is in good shape for pushing that needle down State Street.
whose principal departure from Good Times represented one of television's most important stands for authentic representation. Roll played Florida Evans, the strong matriarch whose wisdom and warmth anchored the show's portrayal of African-American family life. Good Times pioneered realistic depictions of working-class black families struggling with poverty and social issues. Roll's performance was the show's emotional foundation, bringing dignity and strength to a character facing overwhelming challenges. But Roll grew increasingly frustrated with the show's direction, particularly the emphasis on Jimmy Walker's JJ character and his dynamite catchphrase. She felt the show was reinforcing negative stereotypes rather than challenging them, turning serious social commentary into cartoonish comedy. When John Amos was fired for similar complaints, Roll decided to leave rather than compromise her principles. Her departure was handled by having Florida remarry and move away. Number 12 takes us to John Amos.
I wasn't the most diplomatic guy, like I said, in those days, and they got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes.
Whose firing from Good Times sparked one of television's most significant behind-the-scenes controversies. Amos played James Evans Sr., the hard-working father who struggles to provide for his family made Good Times Television's most realistic portrayal of urban poverty. His performance balanced strength with vulnerability, showing a man fighting against systemic racism while maintaining his dignity and values. Amos understood that James Evans represented something important, a positive image of black fatherhood that television rarely showed. But Amos became increasingly vocal about the show's direction, particularly the growing emphasis on Jimmy Walker's buffoonish JJ character. He felt the show was betraying its original mission of serious social commentary by leaning into stereotypical comedy. When his criticism became public, producers decided he was too much trouble and fired him, killing off James in a car accident. Good Times continued for 3 more seasons. At number 11, we have Mike Farrell.
Wonderful series. Once-in-a-lifetime experience. Truly a glorious, glorious time.
Who nearly left MASH multiple times due to political and creative tensions. Farrell joined MASH in season 4 as BJ Honeycutt, replacing Wayne Rogers' Trapper John. His character brought different energy, more serious, more politically aware, and more emotionally complex than his predecessor. Farrell's chemistry with Alan Alda created a friendship that felt genuine and evolved naturally over 7 seasons. But Farrell was deeply political and often clashed with producers over the show's anti-war message and its portrayal of military characters. He wanted MASH to take stronger political stands and was frustrated when network pressure forced more moderate approaches. Several times during the series, Farrell threatened to leave over these creative differences, feeling that the show wasn't living up to its potential for social commentary. His near departures created tension that sometimes showed on screen, but ultimately he stayed until the series finale. Number 10 brings us Shelley Hack.
When I was preparing for this role, I spent time with a woman surgeon and watched operations and...
Whose brief tenure on Charlie's Angels proved that replacing a beloved character is television's most dangerous gamble. Hack joined Charlie's Angels in season 4 as Tiffany Wells, replacing Kate Jackson's cerebral Sabrina Duncan. The show was already struggling with cast changes, having lost Farrah Fawcett after season 1 and now facing another major departure. Hack was a successful model and actress best known for her Revlon commercials and seemed like perfect angel material. Her character was sophisticated, educated, and brought different energy to the trio of crime-fighting beauties. But Hack faced an impossible challenge, replacing a character who had been central to the show's success while maintaining chemistry with established cast members. Audiences never fully accepted Tiffany, viewing her as a poor substitute for the beloved Sabrina. After just one season, Hack was fired and replaced by Tanya Roberts' Julie Rogers. At number 9, we have Wayne Rogers.
Nobody knows anything. Even after they had seen it and it was on the air and it was a hit, they didn't know how to value it.
Whose departure from MASH created one of television's most shocking character exits. Rogers played Trapper John McIntyre, Hawkeye's original partner in pranks and the other half of television's greatest surgical team. Trapper was charming, irreverent, and equally skilled at medicine and mischief, creating a perfect balance with Alan Alda's Hawkeye. Their friendship anchored the show's early seasons, proving that even in wartime, humor and camaraderie could survive. But Rogers grew frustrated with the show's increasing focus on Hawkeye, feeling that Trapper was becoming a sidekick rather than an equal partner. When contract negotiations broke down over billing and creative input, Rogers made the shocking decision to leave. His departure was handled brutally. Trapper simply disappeared between seasons, shipped home without even saying goodbye to Hawkeye. The emotional impact was devastating, teaching audiences that war separates people without warning or ceremony. Number 8 takes us to McLean Stevenson.
It was an incredible experience because we never once stopped the cameras. We would be in a scene and they would be crying back and forth.
Whose departure from MASH created one of television's most shocking and permanent exits. Stevenson played Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, the lovably incompetent commanding officer whose bumbling leadership style somehow kept the 4077th functioning. Henry was the heart of MASH's early seasons, a character who represented the average person thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Stevenson's performance perfectly balanced comedy with genuine warmth, making Henry both funny and deeply human. But Stevenson wanted to be a leading man rather than part of an ensemble, feeling that his talent was being wasted in a supporting role. When he announced his departure, the writers made a decision that shocked television audiences forever. In the season 3 finale, Radar quietly announced that Henry's plane had been shot down over the Sea of Japan with no survivors. The announcement was delivered without music or dramatics, creating one of television's most gut-wrenching moments. At number 7, we have Suzanne Somers.
For the start of the season, I'm going to ask for big money and a piece of the back end, and if you two back me up...
Whose departure from Three's Company became one of television's most famous salary disputes. Somers played Chrissy Snow, the lovably ditzy blonde whose innocent questions and malapropisms provided much of the show's comedy. Three's Company turned a British farce about mistaken sexual identity into American sitcom gold. Somers' performance was perfectly calibrated. Chrissy had to be naive enough to be funny, but sweet enough to be lovable. But as Three's Company became a massive hit, Somers felt she deserved equal pay with her male co-star. She demanded a raise from $30,000 to $150,000 per episode, plus a percentage of the show's profits. When producers refused, Somers began missing tapings as a negotiation tactic. The network retaliated by reducing her to brief phone call appearances, effectively writing her out while keeping her under contract. The show continued with different blonde roommates, but never recaptured its original chemistry. Number 6 brings us Larry Linville, whose departure from MASH proved that playing the perfect villain can become a creative trap. Linville played Major Frank Burns, the incompetent, cowardly antagonist whose bumbling interference provided much of the show's early comedy. Burns was the perfect foil for Hawkeye and Trapper's pranks, a character so thoroughly unlikable that audiences loved to hate him. Linville's performance was masterfully calibrated. Burns had to be ridiculous enough to be funny but believable enough to generate real dramatic tension. But after 5 seasons, Linville felt creatively trapped by the role. Frank Burns was so thoroughly defined as incompetent and cowardly that there was little room for character growth or development. Linville also worried about being typecast as television's ultimate military buffoon, limiting his future career options. When he decided to leave, the writers gave Frank a nervous breakdown and shipped him back to the States. At number 5, we have Kate Jackson.
I was doing Charlie's Angels at the time, and I didn't get to make some of the decisions.
Whose departure from Charlie's Angels marked the beginning of the end for television's most famous detective trio. Jackson played Sabrina Duncan, the smart, serious angel whose investigative skills often solved cases while her partners provided distraction and action. Charlie's Angels revolutionized television by putting women in action roles traditionally reserved for men. Jackson's performance grounded the show's more fantastical elements, providing the intelligence and competence that made the Angel's success believable. Her chemistry with Farrah Fawcett and Jacqueline Smith created a friendship that transcended the show's cheesecake elements, proving that beautiful women could also be capable professionals. But Jackson grew frustrated with the show's direction, feeling that it was becoming more focused on glamour than genuine detective work. She also had health concerns and wanted to pursue more serious dramatic roles. After 3 seasons, Jackson negotiated her exit, with Sabrina transferring to another office. Number 4 takes us to Farrah Fawcett.
Worked and went under contract to a studio, had no formal training. I think what I'm doing right now, I consider my formal training.
Whose departure from Charlie's Angels after just 1 season became one of television's most famous and controversial exits. Fawcett played Jill Monroe, the athletic, fun-loving angel whose blonde beauty and infectious smile made her the breakout star of the trio. Her famous red swimsuit poster became a cultural phenomenon, turning Fawcett into the definition of 1970s beauty and sexuality. Charlie's Angels was Fawcett's first major television role, but her natural charisma and screen presence made her an instant icon. But Fawcett's sudden fame created opportunities in film, and she wanted to establish herself as a serious actress rather than just a television beauty. After 1 season, she shocked producers and fans by leaving to pursue a movie career. Unfortunately, Fawcett's first film, Somebody Killed Her Husband, flopped badly, leading to jokes about her career choices. Charlie's Angels replaced her with Cheryl Ladd, but the show never quite recovered its original magic. At number 3, we have Don Knotts.
It was a tough time for me because I enjoyed the Griffith Show so much that I hated to leave.
Whose departure from the Andy Griffith Show created a void that the series never filled. Knotts played Deputy Barney Fife, the nervous, bumbling lawman whose good intentions and terrible aim made him television's most lovable and competent. The Andy Griffith Show ran from 1968, but Knotts left after 5 seasons to pursue a film career with Universal Studios. Barney wasn't just comic relief, he was the show's heart, providing the manic energy that balanced Andy's calm wisdom. Knotts' physical comedy was masterful, turning simple situations into slapstick gold through his bug-eyed expressions and nervous energy. But Universal offered Knotts a lucrative film contract, and he felt ready to transition from television to movies. His departure was handled by having Barney take a job with the state police, though he returned for occasional visits. The show continued for 3 more seasons, but without Barney's neurotic energy, Mayberry felt incomplete. Coming in at number 2 is Ron Howard.
And Happy Days has given me a lot. If I can find a way to do that, continue doing Happy Days and still grow, getting to produce things like Leo and Laurie.
Whose departure from Happy Days proved that sometimes leaving a hit show is the smartest career move possible. Howard played Richie Cunningham, the all-American teenager whose coming-of-age adventures anchored the show's nostalgic view of 1950s life. Happy Days became a cultural phenomenon that spawned countless catchphrases and made jumping the shark part of the entertainment lexicon. Howard's earnest performance made Richie genuinely likable, providing the moral center that kept the show's increasingly cartoonish elements grounded. But as the show evolved, the spotlight shifted increasingly toward Fonzie, reducing Richie to a supporting character in his own story. Howard was also nurturing directing ambitions, having already helmed several projects while still acting. After 7 seasons, he negotiated his exit to focus on directing full-time. Howard's subsequent directing career, including Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, proved that sometimes walking away from steady success leads to legendary achievement. Taking our number 1 spot isn't a single departure, but the collective exodus from MASH that created television's most dramatic cast upheaval. MASH ran from 1972 to 1983, becoming television's most successful and influential series by blending comedy with serious anti-war commentary. But the show's 11-season run was marked by constant cast changes that somehow made it stronger rather than weaker. McLean Stevenson left first, followed by Wayne Rogers, then Larry Linville, creating a domino effect that forced the show to constantly reinvent itself. Each departure was handled differently: Henry Blake's shocking death, Trapper's unceremonious transfer, Frank Burns' nervous breakdown, but all reflected the show's commitment to realistic consequences over comfortable continuity. The genius of MASH was that it used these departures to explore the nature of war itself, showing how conflict separates people and forces constant adaptation. The final episode became the most watched finale in television history,